Hello again, my name is Rob, an instructor at Simul Academy, and I'm back this time to review the recently ended World Cup Qatar 2022. I'll be talking about some of the success stories from the competition, why the World Cup will be remembered in both positive and perhaps negative way for some as well, and to give my views on some of the people and teams that lit up this competition. So the winning team were Argentina, and I think a number of people would not begrudge them their first title since 1986. They certainly didn't start the tournament impressively, however, suffering a shock defeat to Saudi Arabia in their first game. However, they recovered, managed to get through their group, and then beat the Netherlands on penalties in the quarterfinals before comfortably sweeping aside Croatia 3-0 in a semi-final game. The final itself was arguably the best ever World Cup final, with Argentina defeating France on penalty kicks after a thrilling 3-3 draw after extra time. As for the start of the competition, well, some of the great players were on display, including the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, Kylian Mbappe, and of course, Leo Messi. And it's Messi who I think will end the tournament with his status as king of the game intact. He was remarkable throughout the competition for Argentina, performing a brilliant role in every game, scoring some crucial goals, including 2 in that World Cup final, and just generally rolling back the years as the 35-year-old showed that he's still got plenty to offer. And it was the crowning moment on his career, his first World Cup title, finally stepping out of Diego Maradona's shadow to become an Argentina legend. A word too for Kylian Mbappe, the defeated finalist of France. He became only the second player in history to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final, so there'll be plenty of more times for him to impress as he's only 23 years old, remarkably. It wasn't, however, such a good tournament for Cristiano Ronaldo. Having lost his place in the starting lineup, Portugal were beaten in the quarterfinals, and Ronaldo leaves the competition with this probably his last World Cup. Similarly, who knows whether we'll see Neymar back at the World Cup in the future. The Brazilian also exiting in tears as Brazil were also defeated in the quarterfinals by Croatia on penalties, despite Neymar himself scoring a wonderful goal to give Brazil the lead in that game. So I think it's Messi then who establishes himself as the GOAT of world football, the greatest of all time. As I said, probably finally laying the ghost of Maradona to rest. So while a World Cup final of Argentina versus France was not entirely unexpected, there were plenty of surprises throughout the competition, starting with, as mentioned earlier, Saudi Arabia defeating Argentina. However, the surprise team overall of the tournament was undoubtedly Morocco, the first team from the African continent to reach a World Cup semi-final, and they defeated both Spain and Portugal on the way. They were only stopped in their tracks by France in the semi-final, going down 2-0, but even in that game, played extremely well and made lots of fans and friends along the way. They represented not only the African continent, but also the Arab and Muslim world, and so Morocco certainly left a legacy in this competition. Croatia certainly were a good team, there's no doubt about that, as they were finalists, of course, back in 2018. But I think it was still a big surprise for them to reach another World Cup semi-final with an aging squad. But once more, little magician Luka Modric proved again that he's one of the world's finest midfield players, and they were the team that ended Japan's incredible World Cup as well, defeating the Japanese on penalty kicks after Japan had qualified through the group of death that I talked about in my earlier video. Japan not only defeated world champions Germany, but also Spain as well, as they managed to eliminate the Germans from their group and move to the next stage. They were also unlucky to lose to Croatia in that match, with just a couple of weak penalty kicks the reason for their exit, but the Japanese team can certainly hold their heads up high. So how will this tournament be remembered? Well, certainly the on-field action was memorable. The World Cup final itself was said to be, by many observers, the greatest World Cup final of all time. And certainly the enjoyable shocks and group stage of the competition will go down as well, I think, as one of the most successful tournaments on the pitch. However, there will still remain question marks about Qatar's legacy. Again, the question of migrant workers was not completely resolved, and the exclusion of LGBTQ groups from the competition certainly was something that didn't paint the host country in a positive light. However, probably more damaged in terms of reputation was the FIFA president Gianni Infantino, who tried to make the tournament a lot about himself. He was ubiquitous throughout, his face appearing on the big screen at the beginning of every match, sometimes being booed by the watching audiences of those matches in the stadium. He tried to almost hijack the presentation ceremony, invited some of his friends and dignitaries into the ceremony who probably should have left it to the Argentinian soccer team to celebrate by themselves. So I think Gianni Infantino, as FIFA president, will come under increasing scrutiny as a result of this competition. Will we see another World Cup held in Qatar? Well, I doubt it, to be honest. I think they've had their day in the sun. Some of the stadiums, in fact, will be dismantled and deconstructed after the World Cup. And so it remains to be seen what the remaining stadium will be used for. Will they serve some kind of purpose, or will they just remain as white elephants of an extravagant and most expensive World Cup in history? However, I do feel that Qatar 2022 will remain long in the memory of many football fans all around the world, especially those in Argentina and Morocco. Thank you very much for listening again to the World Cup coverage that I've provided over the past couple of presentations. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a little bit about the game itself, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks.